Hello. Good morning, good afternoon, good evening, depending on where you are and when you hear this or watch this. I wanted to do a little follow-up teaching. A few weeks ago, I wrote in Substack about dying for sex and how important I think this show is, how important I think these conversations are. And then I wanted to take it kind of a step further and goes specifically into episode 8, the last episode where we meet Amy, who comes in to do some death teaching. And there are some things I wanted to kind of highlight for us. I wanted to go over, I wanted to expand on. And so here's a little teaching that I think, again, is not just for folks who are experiencing loss or grief or death or dying personally right now, but rather as like a PSA for all humans, since this is one thing we all have in common, is that we are going to die and everyone and everything we love will die as well. So that reality that we live with in our culture, the death phobic culture that we live in, really likes to avoid this topic and these realities. And part of what I hope we do during this time is expand and elevate these conversations, become a little bit more death literate, become not necessarily death positive. That language and movement doesn't really resonate with me in terms of it's not that it like turns into positivity, it's that more of the realities of the commonality of what it means to be human and what we're all experiencing and will experience together. Really normalizing how grief and death and dying um, are part of our life and our vocabulary, and normalizing some of the experiences that we have and some of the patterns. I think one of the things I love most about this topic is that there are patterns that we can recognize, and some of them I'll talk about, but also there are unknowns. And I'll start actually with this. The things I want to expand on is Amy says in episode 8 of Dying with Sex, if you haven't seen it yet, please stop. You go watch it. The episodes are not that long. Most people have told me they binged it like over a weekend or over a day and a night. So this will probably make more sense if you see it, if you've seen it, but if not, see how this lands because it really is, again, kind of normalizing for everyone. But the first thing that Amy says, the hospice nurse, is that death is not a mystery. And I actually want to say there are aspects of death that are not mysterious. There are some patterns, especially in hospice, in the setting that she's in, that the show's in, where there's not a mystery, there's a path to dying, but also in the bigger context of how people die, when they die, what they die of, and all of the other aspects of dying, it actually is a mystery. There are countless numbers of experiences I've had and others have had where you get a diagnosis and or a timeline, and it doesn't follow that timeline at all. Sometimes it goes much faster, sometimes it goes much slower. Sometimes there's miraculous recoveries. Sometimes folks go in for a little pain, living a great life, a little pain, or maybe no pain. They go in for something else, only to discover that something else is going on and they die soon after. So Amy starts with saying in episode 8, death is not a mystery. And I want to just say, yes, it is. And also there are patterns, which we'll get into. Um, so she comes in and she asks them if they want to hear about what happens when you're dying. And here are some quotes I love. Death is not a medical disaster, it's a bodily process. It's like giving birth or going to the bathroom or coughing or having an orgasm. Your body knows what to do, your body knows how to die. And this is, I just think, so important to remember, is like trusting the process. For those of you who've given birth, this is very similar in terms of timelines, in terms of labor often starting a few weeks before with some contractions, some different physical sensations, and then it's leading up to the threshold, the portal, the magic liminal of birth. And we have the same thing when we're going out. We breathe in birth and life, and we breathe out death. And just thinking about that, like expansion and contraction of the natural cycle. So I love how from the beginning Amy says that these are bodily processes and your body knows how to do it. We don't have to do more to die in this way. And then she goes into saying, here's what to expect. The last month of your life, you're going to stop getting out of bed. You're going to eat and drink a lot less and sleep a lot more. That's very common. You can look for that and look for those signs. Delirium is very common. Seeing people from your past, thinking about the brain as like a file cabinet. And as the brain starts to shut down, it like releases some of the files of our past. So oftentimes, like I remember this in specific with a person I was with who was dying, was she started talking about things from decades ago that I'd never heard her talk about. And so again, it can this delirium phase can kind of come in and out of reality. Some people say they get this feeling that time stops being real. This is where you kind of are in alternate time space state realities, in consciousness and unconsciousness. And like sometimes it even kind of feels translucent. The body, the physical body, that's the vata stage of life. So it's it can be very light, very almost like flaky and almost translucent or liminal. And that's happening in mind, body, spirit. Um, and then Amy goes in to say 2 to 3 weeks out, you'll need help with all daily activities. And then she goes into um, part of what she calls her favorite part of the dying process, and really states again, your body knows what's coming, but that it goes into a state of ketosis where you decrease hunger and pain and increases the sense of euphoria. So I think that's really interesting. Again, this like the natural process of dying has so much wisdom where the hunger decreases and you get flooded with a state of euphoria. Can get it, right? This is not guaranteed. We go back to this whole, it's a mystery. We go back to, there are patterns that we can look for. And also the mystery is also here with us. Okay, then here's one of my favorite parts that I like just definitely want to teach everybody and share with everyone and talk about. When you start active dying is a sacred time. So in my death doula work, this is when I'll say, okay, let's talk about vigiling. What do we want to do during a vigil when someone is in active dying? They're close to death. They're typically out of, not really in consciousness, not able to really talk. And in active dying, the sacred time is a liminal time. It can be a really connective time, a really meditative time. And again, this is where we get a lot of creativity and a lot of variability on what folks, families, and the dying want at that time. Music, candles, smells, massage, or just silence, or like a little bit of white noise. It really depends on the person, what they want in this sacred time. And Nurse Amy says, active dying is a sacred time. At least it used to be, and still is in some parts of the world. It's the moments when you are very close to death and your body starts shutting down. And this is just, again, I love this line. Active dying is a sacred time, at least it used to be, and still is in some parts of the world. May we bring that here to our homes, to our relationships at this time. The way that active dying can bring us in community, in care, in tenderness. It is a gift for the transition for the dying to have that kind of presence. And it is also, please trust me on this, and those of you who've experienced it, It is a gift for the living to have that sacred time in active dying and to be in the presence of someone who is dying and to treat it like sacred vigil time, to treat it as if it's something, it's such a deep respect. And that environment can be created anywhere. Obviously, there's like good, better, best in terms of where we have more agency around what that looks like. But we can be creative on it. And again, kind of return to this active dying is so sacred. You won't be fully conscious. The jaw muscles begin to relax, breathing changes, and there might be gurgling, the death rattle, which sometimes can come in or can be a sign, and it's caused by something called terminal secretions. When you're very close to death, your breathing goes into a cycle of deep, slow breaths and long pauses in between. You may have seen this or experienced it where you're not sure that there's going to be another inhale, so you're just kind of in relationship, in presence with what's happening with the breathing pattern as it deepens and lengthens. And then eventually there's a breath out that is not followed by a breath in, and that is death, right? And that is the dying process. The last part of my little PSA here about this episode 8 is the rally. And this is something I teach and share with families all the time in my death work, is really important to know about. And again, like I want to share this with you all so that you share it with your loved ones. And when folks come to you and say, hey, my so-and-so is dying, can you help? That you'll be able to say, yes, I have the tools and I'm death literate and I'm not afraid to sit with you. Even though it's painful, even though there is suffering, even though this is hard, even though there is grief, even though there might be a lot of emotion, but I'm not afraid of that because this is normal, this is natural, and we're going to do this together. We're going to sit together in this. And so the rally is a big piece of education. Usually it happens the last week or the last days. Some people experience the rally, and it's a surge of energy and mental clarity. And it actually indicates that you are a step closer to death. And it can be very, very confusing for people. I've had people call and say, oh my gosh, my loved one just sat up and just said a full sentence and they haven't been talking all week and I haven't been able to understand them. And that is an indicator actually that they're closer to death, that the rally is the surge of energy and clarity and can be an indicator that they're closer. So it's an important thing to teach so that it doesn't mislead us that the person perhaps is had a miraculous recovery. Now, I have heard of folks having given deadlines for life and for their death timeline and not sticking to it, meaning they've surpassed it. They've had these miraculous recoveries. That has happened. I have experienced that. But typically, when we're talking about the patterns of death, we're talking about natural dying process, we're talking about hospice care, end of life care, we're talking about the rally is a possibility and can, if we don't know about it, actually be quite misleading. And so those were just some of the main points that I really wanted to like elevate and go deeper with. I'm really curious if you watch the show. There's so many other threads we could talk about in terms of desire, women, life, societal norms, conditioning. Like there's so much here. But this particular episode and this particular scene feels really important for us to ground in, for us to learn from. And I'm really grateful to be alive at this time with this type of education growing and expanding. So may it serve you and your life and your loved ones in their own dying, death, and grief process.